Good morning, good afternoon. I want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Jay Riley, and with my colleague Tony Nason, we're looking forward to introducing you to what's new in Data3Sixty Analyze. And it's about 3 past the hour. There's still some people trickling in, but I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Just a few housekeeping issues before we do get started. We are going to record this session today. We are recording now, and we'll make that available, as well as we're planning on sending a follow-up email with some of the links and resources where you can learn more about Data3Sixty. And we also are going to welcome your questions. If you can use the questions feature in the GoToMeeting panel, we'll have a look at those at the end. We'll get to as many as we can, and any questions we don't answer, we'll follow up directly with you. What we're going to cover today is we're going to talk a little bit about Infogix and how Lavastorm has been integrated into Infogix. Mostly, we're going to focus on what's new in Data3Sixty Analyze, which is the new product formerly known also as Dataverse, and was the latest version of LAE. Most of the people on the phone today are LAE users, and so we're really targeting people who have experience with LAE and how they might get to Data3Sixty Analyze. So Tony will be talking about how we're going to upgrade from LAE to Data3Sixty, and then again, we'll take your questions. So I thought it'd be useful just to talk about how we got here, and the name Data3Sixty Analyze might be new to a few of you. So just to take a few steps back, LAE 6.1 was released in July of 2015. We've been doing maintenance and feature releases since then, but it really has slowed dramatically towards the end of 2016 when we first released Dataverse. Dataverse is built on much of the same underlying code as LAE, but was a new version with a lot of new technology and new features, and so we decided to give it a new name. Then in 2018, in March last year, Infogix acquired Lavastorm, and since then, in October this year, Infogix launched their new website, their new brand, and they've included Dataverse in that, but we've been renamed to Data3Sixty Analyze to fit the product name and also to reflect the fact that we're now part of a broader portfolio of products. And we also sent out an announcement towards the end of last year that Lavastorm, or LAE, will be end of support at the end of this calendar year. Tony's going to talk a little bit about what that means specifically during his section, if you haven't been up to speed on that yet. So just briefly, what's been happening since Lavastorm and Infogix have come together last March. So if you don't know much about Infogix yet, hope you've checked them out, but they've been around a long time, founded in 1982, based just outside of Chicago, Illinois. They have a very broad set of tools to manage, govern, and use data, and so the former Lavastorm products fit right in nicely with their mission and the kind of customers and things they've done for a long time. They have very high customer loyalty, with customers averaging over 15 years. It's a profitable company and financially healthy, part of the Thoma Bravo portfolio. From what that integrations look like from Lavastorm's, from my perspective, Tony and I both former Lavastorm folks, they've kept everybody on. Our former CEO, Tim Siegel, is now the CTO of Infogix. So we've got a strong presence in the new integrated company. And the Data3Sixty Analyze, again, some of you may know this as Dataverse, the team continues to be developed and expanded. We did about 8 releases last year, and we're continuing with that sort of monthly release cycle or near monthly release cycle. And the Analyze product is going to continue to be offered as a standalone, the way everybody has bought it previously, but we're also integrating it into the broader Data3Sixty platform, where it's got some real benefits to bring some solutions together and be part of a broader portfolio. So that may be of interest to some of you, but you can still buy it as a standalone. So I'm going to go more about the product now, and we're going to talk about what's new in Data3Sixty Analyze and what's different from LAE. So we've got a new data viewer. These are the things I'm going to show you. We've got a new data viewer. We're really excited about the new nodes. They're much faster and they're much easier to use. We're changing away from BrainScript to a new scripting language, Python, which is industry standard, which we've had a very good reaction from clients on. It's a browser-only client. We'll talk a little bit about the benefits of that. We've enhanced our cloud compatibility and deployment models, and we've got some other non-functional stuff too, drivers and documentation, and I'll take a quick look at that as well. So from a data viewer perspective or a data flow authoring perspective, it looks very similar. You've still got a flow paradigm where data flows through different nodes, and you can combine them together and do different transformations. And at the bottom, we give you a new data viewer where you can inspect your data at any point, which is similar to LAE, but we also give you visual data quality indicators and a histogram inline. So I'll show you how that works. So again, just like with LAE, at any point in time, you can click on an output pin and see the data that's flowing through your nodes. But when you do that in Analyze, that will pop up this data viewer at the bottom. And what you'll notice about the data view at the bottom is we give you a color-coded visual quality indicator to say the quality of the data. So you can see on the install base ID, it's gone from bright green from the column next to it to an off green to show you that the data quality is only 83% in this case because there's some blanks or some nulls, some missing values. If you then click on that data quality indicator, that green bar, that will pull up a histogram for you right in line, give you information about the fields that you're looking at. This was something you could get in LAE, but you would need to actually drop a histogram node and then run that to see the output. Where here, we're just trying to make it so that you can identify there might be an issue as you're doing a design, and then you can dig right into it without having to, again, drop any nodes and do anything else extra. So we're just trying to surface this information a bit more quickly and easily. And that's really the theme you'll find around everything we're doing in Analyze. A lot of the same function and power is there. Things are just a bit quicker and easier. With this histogram, you can actually zoom in if you had a particular peak or valley and there were lots of fields. You can zoom in to see where the values are that are particular outliers that you may want to drill into further. And so again, just trying to give you that information in line. Another thing you can do with the data viewer is, just like you might with Excel or another tool, you can do a sort or a filter or those sorts of things. We give you the ability to do that in the data viewer. And if you chose to do a sort or a filter, that would bring up a wizard. So again, we're moving away from requiring you to code a lot of things in BrainScript to just having a nice UI for things. So in this case, you can choose your operator at equals, greater than, less than, whatever, in a nice wizard fashion, and then that will filter or sort based on what you've selected in the data viewer. And then if you decide, hey, that's an interesting transformation, I want to actually save that, you can then add that as a node to your canvas. So you've done something in the data viewer, you want to actually have that going forward, rather than going and dropping a node and configuring that. You say add that to the data flow, and it will drop onto the canvas with it pre-configured in the way that you selected it in the data viewer. So you can author from the data viewer or from configuring nodes. Kind of continuing on with our new nodes. So there is a set of new nodes. Some of the old ones that have been replaced are on the screen here. And the new nodes give you a scriptless way to configure them. So again, moving away from BrainScript. They're much faster and they'll better support internationalization or wider character set. Again, there's a significant performance improvement with these nodes. You can see some of the times that we've measured here in terms of how fast things run. And this will run faster whether you're using particularly large data sets or small data sets. We've optimized the way we execute the nodes based on the data size so that if it's a small data set, it will run fast. And if it's a very large data set, where it will continue to run fast as well. Again, kind of talking about the node improvements and the scriptless configuration. We've got a new calculate fields node, which I'll show you in a second. We've got split, filter, join, sort, merge, etc., all with this sort of wizard interface with no scripting required. Now, one of the great things about LAE, and that we've continued in Analyze, is it is a very powerful tool. So we've not, by adding this interface, we've not dumbed down the product at all or taken away any of the power that it has. You can, in fact, configure it using the wizard, and then if you'd like to flip to the advanced tab, and that will have the code underneath, and you can then modify that code. Or in the next node we'll talk about, you can actually just write freeform transformations that will allow you to do very complex, arbitrarily complex things that maybe the wizard doesn't account for. The new Calculate Fields node, this just was released at the beginning of this month, is one that we've had a lot of demand for and customers are very excited about. So again, with this node, you can create, update, rename, or calculate new fields. You can include if-then logic, and you can do, calculations or math. So in this case, we can see in the first row here, I say the full name is the concatenation of first name plus a space plus the last name, or the total due is the price of the thing times the quantity. So you can do math, you can change data types, you can, again, calculate, rename things here. So all things you used to do with brain scripts by omitting this and that, you can do here in a very simple way. The aggregate node, this is the last one I'll just show you the wizard on. Again, this was something in LAE you had to do scripting to do. Now it works very simply where you can select a field and then say how you want to aggregate or roll that up. If you want to do a count, a sum, a min, max, average, and you can output that as a new field name if you want as well. So again, just trying to make this very simple for things that are easy, but also not trying to take away any of the power of LAE, and that's why we still allow you to do advanced scripting with with Python. So Python's the new core scripting language. That being said, anything you've run, developed in BrainScript, will run in Analyze if you've compiled it in 6.1. So if you've got 6.1.1, 2, 3, 4, you can port your graph from that to Analyze and it will run. And if it doesn't, you need to let us know because we've stated that level of backwards compatibility. So you can continue to run BrainScript. You won't get the speed advantages we've been talking about in some of the new nodes. You also won't get the ease of configuration. So one of the things Tony will talk about is after you've ported your scripts, what you can do to, again, take advantage of the new features. But this is a big point for customers we've talked to so far. Everybody wants to know what happens to all the assets I have already. The advantages of Python are, I've listed some here, but basically you can Google the answer, you can look on Stack Overflow for the answers to Python things much easier than BrainScript perhaps. You can hire people or leverage people who have skills within your organizations. And we found improved performance, especially when handling very large data sets. So there's lots of good reasons to go to an industry standard language. And again, the feedback we've gotten has been very good about that. This is how you might use Python. So you might use it in our new transform node. And the transform node is basically a blank node where you can write a Python transformation. And so why would you use a transform node rather than a sort or filter or calculate fields? If you wanted to do something very complex, yeah, some sort of very complex logic, maybe something that spans multiple rows of data, so you want to add row 1 to row 2 to row 3. You want to use some functionality where you're going to import a Python module. You want to correct spelling mistakes, etc. You can do that or those sorts of things in the transform node. Again, our goal is to add a lot of functionality to the standard nodes so that the requirement for scripting is less, but when you're doing complex and very custom things, we still have that here. Data3Sixty Analyze is now a browser-only client design. So what that means is if you're running a server, you connect to that server with your web browser, with Chrome or Internet Explorer, and you're working on the server in that way. That makes it much easier than if there's a thick client and a server and you have to upgrade them all at the same time. It's much easier, there's less conflict there. We've also made it easier for our server users. You might know today it's a little tricky to get a file from your desktop to the server. We've made that very simple in Analyze to do, which is a benefit for a lot of people. If you're running the desktop version of Analyze, then you essentially still use the browser, but you're just connecting to a local instance of it running rather than a server instance of it running. But it is all browser-based, and you can actually see in the screenshot there's a URL at the top there. So it is all browser-based. We've enhanced our cloud readiness. So from a interoperability standpoint, with Amazon S3, with Google Cloud Storage, or with Azure storage blobs, you can now list, get data, delete data, put data in all of those cloud storage formats right out of the box. These are nodes that you can just drop on the canvas and configure. We also ship with many of the common cloud database drivers, such as Redshift and some of the other standards you might imagine. So we're trying to enhance as we see our customers moving data to the cloud. We want to be there to be able to connect and analyze that data. We also have increased, obviously, our cloud deployment. So you can go today and get on the Amazon Marketplace or on Google Cloud Platform. You can get Analyze as a standalone kind of by the hour offering, or you can buy it annually through the marketplace, or you can, what most of our customers will do, bring a license from us, but it's easily deployed in those clouds. This is especially useful for piloting or testing new things, that sort of thing. We're also planning to add Azure. We've added Google and Amazon first due to market demand, but Azure will be coming. We're targeting that for next quarter, for Q2. One of the other significant changes is we are developing faster. So for many of the competitors in the marketplace, as well as for LAE, we were kind of 1 or 2 major releases per year. With Analyze, we're not quite monthly. I think we did 10 releases in 2017 and maybe 8 or 9 last year. And so it's not quite monthly, but we have many release cycles and many release trains. So when we fix something, you don't have to wait 6 months for the new version to come out. So we're iterating all the time in an agile way. That might scare some folks, especially on servers, to say I'm not going to upgrade every month. We are doing, we have a long-term support model, which is pretty standard in the software world, where we every 6 months we'll release a long-term support version, and you can upgrade to that version. That will be supported for at least 1 year, and it will get any serious defects or vulnerabilities fixed on that, so you don't have to necessarily take every single month's download, because that's hard for some customers. A lot of our desktop customers are upgrading every month because there's lots of new good stuff in each release, and so people are excited to get it every month. One of the things this has allowed us to do, one of the benefits for having this faster release cycle, it allows us to get input from customers and turn that into new features very quickly. So there's a transpose node now in Analyze that was requested by a customer of ours here in Europe last summer in August, and they said, you know, in LAE it's very hard to do a transpose. I have to write all this brain script. This could be simple. Why isn't it simple? And I took that to the development team, and in September they developed that, and then in the late October release, which was the next one after the release was complete, after that feature was complete, we now have a transpose node. You can use that going forward, and that was a feature requested from one customer. Now everybody has that, which is great. We've had similar stories around features for Tableau, our Tableau node, and some other things where one customer's requested it, and we found out that about 10 customers really loved that. So we are adding things kind of every month and very quickly. So we would love to hear your feedback on things as well for this reason, because we've got lots of releases. We want to get stuff out there. If you're used to LAE documentation, I encourage you to have a look at Analyze's documentation, because it's been completely rewritten. It's entirely new, and we've really focused on this as an area for improvement. And I think it's one of the places that we've done a really great job, if I say so myself. It is dramatically better. We try to give you help within context of the nodes. We give you examples of how you might use it. There's links to videos. We've done little 3 to 5 minute videos for a lot of the nodes that is linked to right from the help. So if you click the help, it has a description, an example, link to a video, some other common tips and tricks. It is much better, and I really encourage you all to look at that as you're using the new product. Fully documented API. We ship with a lot more database drivers, so the install is easier. You can actually start it up and run with it, as opposed to having to go find a bunch of database drivers. So we ship with the popular ones there. And we've got keyboard shortcuts. So if you're like my CTO who thinks taking your hands off the keyboard and moving them to the mouse is a sign of weakness, these are for you, and there's some really useful ones there. So encourage you to find the keyboard shortcuts as well. There are a few things as LAE customers that you're going to look for that aren't there yet. So if you download the latest version 3.15, it was released this month, you will notice the bypass and bundlers and boxes or the annotation layer is not there. You can import it from if you've got a graph in LAE 6.1, it will import, but you can't edit it. You can't create a new one. We're targeting all of these things, for upcoming releases. And particularly the top two are ones that we've definitely heard from customers are important and will get fixed in the short term or added in the short term to Analyze. And really, some of these things will, as we re-implement them in Analyze, they'll be done in a bit nicer or more elegant way, or maybe with some increased features. Finally, I thought it would be useful to just talk about where we're going to take the product. So we've kind of talked about in the last 2 years, we've added all these nodes, we've had all these releases. This is kind of where we're continuing to take it in the next year. So you've seen a lot about the ease of use, us raising data quality stuff right as you're designing, the scriptless interactions on the nodes. We're going to continue with those sorts of nodes. We've got Modify Fields node coming out. We want to improve at ease of acquiring data from databases and spreadsheets and such. Just make that a little bit simpler in the same way we've made a lot of the other nodes simpler. We're going to continue to add enterprise features, like we've added a lot around collaboration. We're going to source code control management. So if you want to integrate with Git, or other version control, we're going to allow you to hooks to do that. Again, we're going to continue to enhance our cloud deployment models and integration. I showed you a bit about what we've done already, but we're going to continue to drive down that path. Again, we're going to integrate with other Infogix products around their data quality offering and their governance offering. So they do a lot in data quality and governance, and there's a lot of ways we found where Analyze will complement that nicely, and where those products complement Analyze nicely. So you'll see some features added for to integrate tighter with Infogix products and for Infogix customers, and that might be of interest to you as well. And then on the bottom there is that, you know, we've got a set of things that as customers migrate, we're going to add. I had on the last slide the boxes and bundlers, for instance. So we've got some of the roadmap reserved for that. And so that's the overview of the new product. And how we got to where we are and where we're going. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Tony, who is going to walk us through the upgrade process, and then we'll have a look and see if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jay. So let's start with some key points before we look to see what the process is with regards to upgrading to Analyze from LAE. The first point, and touched on by Jay, some of these clients, or you need to be on LAE 6.1 to migrate those graphs to Analyze. If you're not on 6.1, as Jay said, 6.1 all the way through, you need to upgrade to 6.1 first, move your graphs into 6.1 and then export them again and push them into Analyze. But hopefully most customers are on 6.1 already. There will also be, well, there has been notification sent out last year with regards to the end of support of LAE. So that's going to come in, or end of support is going to be December 31st this year, so the end of this year. So really we're looking for everybody to be migrated to Analyze so they can continue to be supported by us before that date. We have had a number of customers already move from LAE to Analyze, a number of very successful upgrades, and those customers are now actively using the new features and loving some of the new features that Jay has mentioned throughout this presentation. As part of the migration process, we will provide an overlapping license for 90 days. So that means you'll have a license for LAE and also Analyze for a period of 90 days to allow you to actually upgrade, do the testing and the actual process that I'll run through shortly. From a license conversion point of view, you will receive an Analyze license that's equivalent to, and in some cases maybe better than the LAE product as well. That will be free and up until the point of the end of support of LAE, so the end of this year. Post the end of this year, going into 2020, if you're looking to upgrade after end of support, there will be a one-off charge of 25% of the original purchase price. Our ultimate goal for this whole process is to make the upgrade process from LAE to Analyze easier than previous LAE migrations. So I'm sure a number of people on this webinar have been through an LAE process in the past. You'll probably recognize the next slide in this process. So ultimately, this is the upgrade process that we're advising all our customers to follow. The first piece being the installation of Analyze. So whether this is a server version or a desktop version, you can install it in parallel to your LAE version. So if you've got a server, you can have LAE and Analyze on the same server. Some customers do choose to bring up another box to do their testing, or if they're constrained with performance, sometimes they will just have it on the same box, but just making sure that they're running one version at a time. However, say you're able to run both in parallel. And also the installation files are all available on our website. That's including the freemium version, which you can also use for testing if needed. The next stage will be training. So this is something we can offer as a kind of a package. Originally, we created a half-day training session for existing LAE users. However, we identified very quickly that the actual uptake of skills and the increase of skills to use Analyze was a lot quicker than we expected. Users were actually picking up the new features and new ways of working very, very quickly. So that's actually come down to a couple of hours now, sort of 2-hour session that we can take you through in a bit more detail of what Jay's gone through and a few more features. In addition to that, and as part of our attempt to make this easy to use and self-learning type tool, as Jay said, the documentation has been greatly improved, so please do look at that because there's a lot there. We also have the community base, so there's a knowledge base where you can ask questions, you can even request sort of suggest new enhancements and things like that. And we also have the getting started videos, that a few short videos showcasing some of the features, some of the nodes and things like that within Analyze. Next stage after that would be the actual migration. So this is moving your graphs from LAE and converting them to data flows within Analyze. It's a simple enough process of exporting your BRGs from LAE and then importing to Data3Sixty Analyze. If there were to be any exceptions, then there will be some error messaging within the UI, within the browser of the Analyze to inform you of the type of exception. The error messaging is a lot better than it used to be in LAE as well, so it should be clear if there are any exceptions that need to be resolved. As Jay said, there is also a lot of improvement, or non-improvement, but there is a backwards compatibility, so your brain script will be imported as the superseded nodes, and that should run through as expected. Once you've got your graphs imported, it is then a case of testing. This is usually, and this has been the case for LAE upgrades as well, this is usually the piece that takes the longest, and it's really dependent on the number of graphs you've got and what kind of testing you're going to do. So a lot of customers decide to do kind of parallel testing, so they run certain data sets through LAE, then run exactly the same data set through Analyze as well, and then simply compare the results, obviously making sure that the data flow completes, and then the actual results and the outputs from Analyze and LAE are the same. Some other customers have also got actual test cases for each of their graphs, and that would just be converted across to Analyze and actually test out the individual test cases per graph and ensure that obviously the results are the same. Once the testing's been completed or any exceptions have been resolved and confirmed everything's working as expected, it's then a case of going live. Again, this is quite a simple process. It's similar to what you would have done with LAE in the past as well if you've done an upgrade. From a server point of view, it might be a case if you installed it on the same server, you just need to change the ports across, or switch the ports between LAE and Analyze to make Analyze the live version. From a desktop point of view, it's as simple as basically stop using LAE and continue using Analyze itself. Then there's kind of some post-migration optional steps. First, obviously, from an Infogix point of view, we can obviously support you with any exceptions that you may have. As I say, there's the community, they've got the support team as well. But one of the key things that we like to see customers do, and some customers are doing this as well, is actually tune and replace some of their nodes. So as Jay said, we've got a number of superseded nodes that's really the old BrainScript nodes. The performance you get from them are more or less, if not better, in Analyze, but to get the real improvements in performance, you should be using the new node. So it could be a case of switching out the sort nodes and that you'll bring some performance improvements there. A number of customers have started doing that who have migrated from LAE to Analyze, and they're actually seeing quite a bit of performance improvement in there as well. And then the final stage of that would be to uninstall LAE and just make sure that all users across the board are actually using Analyze going forward. So a common question, and sometimes it can be quite tough to answer, is the timeline of the actual migration process. Really, the process is typically quite quick to actually get the graphs from LAE to Analyze, but really everything's based on the points that we've got there. So number of environments you've got to upgrade. So if it's a server base, how many environments do you have? Dev, UAT, and prod environment, and obviously pulling the graphs from each environment to make sure they're being tested. But there's also the number of graphs and also the complexity, which is also a tough question to ask. What is the complexity of graph? We usually class it as kind of small, medium, and large, and that can be based on kind of the number of nodes in there. But really, it's the number of graphs that you want to pull across, and then obviously it's the type of testing. So if you've got 100 graphs and you want to do full parallel testing, you just need to consider how long those graphs run in LAE. Expect it to be more or less the same in Analyze, and then it's the case of actually doing the comparisons at the end. So really, the big crux of the timeline is going to be around the testing piece. And then obviously, as I'm sure some of you are aware, we have professional services that can support you through this. There's a number of options that we can do. We can either take a small piece of the process. We can assist you just in the installation, making sure that your data source is connected and things like that, or even just the training. We have previously, last year, for a number of customers, is actually take on the full migration process. So thinking about the last slide, that includes the actual migration and moving your graphs to Analyze, but also the testing. So we can actually perform the whole end-to-end piece for you as well. And obviously there's some advantages there that you can see there that we can bring to make sure this is successful for you. There's less impact to yourselves and your users, ensuring that the actual move to Analyze is smooth and it starts off on a good footing. Finally, from myself, we have a number of resources, so we're trying to make everything as easy to use, but also make this process a lot better for you as well. So we'll send these links out in a follow-up email to you all over the next day or so. But first of all, there's the migration guide. So this is probably the most important document. This has everything you need to know from what's supported between LAE and Analyze, some ensuring things like the old expert code, which probably hardly anybody knows about, making sure that that's not in there, but also gives you some details about the superseded nodes, deprecated nodes, and things like that, and what to do with those. So I do recommend you actually going through the migration guide and actually having a look at that, and also sharing it around with the users as well. Obviously, there's the download of the Analyze as well. So that's available on our website, and you're able to download the desktop, the freemium version, as well as some of the server versions for that as well. There is, as I said before, kind of our community pages where there's a forum on there. You can ask questions. That's actively monitored by ourselves here at Infogix, as well as other customers are now starting to answer other customers' questions as well. So we're hoping to build that up and have a good base of questions in there that people can search upon. There's obviously the documentation there as well and things like that. And then finally, as I say, we've got the getting started videos. We're continually adding to that list. And if you've got any questions or any comments and suggestions about videos that you'd like to see, please do make us aware, and we'll get on to them as well.
Great. Thanks, Tony. There are a few questions. I just want to emphasize we will send out an email to everybody with those links. So I hope you weren't furiously scribbling or taking a screenshot or whatever. If you were, that's great, but we'll send that out for you. There's only a few questions in the question chat. Tony, I'll take the first one. I'm going to give the second one to you. The first one was around, if I have an LAE server and some folks use Analyze on their desktop, can I, before I move the server across, take a Analyze built data flow and import it to to LAE? And the answer to that is no. So we covered about how you can take graphs from 6.1 LAE forward to analyze, but you can't go backwards. Just the same way it was if you upgraded LAE from version 5 to version 6. You couldn't take something in 6 and bring it back to 5. So you can't, we have backwards compatibility. You can bring an older version into Analyze, but you can't bring an Analyze version to an older server. So you have to think about that when you're upgrading, and if you've got a mix of desktop and server users, you probably want to have that considered. And Tony, I'll ask the second question to you, which is there a community for Data3Sixty?
Yeah, sure. So I think that may have been asked just before I got to that, but fundamentally there is. So as described, the community on there has got a number of things. So some people are probably used to the community forum of LAE. We've changed that slightly. We still have the community where you can raise questions and in a forum type basis, but as well as in that community, there's articles from ourselves at Infogix. So for example, one of the links we'll send you has got the migration guide. That's in the community forum. Oh, not the forum, but within that community. So there's a number of different articles in there. There's some details around some sort of Python help and things like that. So yeah, so there's a lot on there, but we're actively trying to push people to use the forum so it builds up a knowledge base in there. So when a customer has a query about something, they can search on it and hopefully they'll be able to get the answer to it straight away without having to ask themselves.
Perfect. And Tony, I'll take the next one, and then I'll probably leave a couple of the next ones for you if you see them coming in. The question about the scheduler, will there be a replacement for the scheduler? The answer is yes. The scheduler has been redone in Analyze. It's much simpler, much easier to use. It is part of the application rather than a separate thing that you go and log into. And I think that is one of probably the things we'd like to identify with you if you have many schedules that you're looking to replicate in Analyze. That's something we may want to walk through with you, because it is a completely different scheduling module. Again, much simpler. Also, you can it comes up from time to time when talking about scheduling. Also integrate it with an enterprise scheduler if you use Control M or something like that in your enterprise, and you'd like to kick off jobs in Analyze from that. You can do that as well very easily in the new product. But yes, there is a new scheduler. So Tony, the next couple are related to support and those sorts of things. So I'll let you kind of kick those off.
Yeah, sure. So I think some of them kind of go into the one, is there 24/7 support available if we need technical support? So ultimately the support is the same as LAE. We haven't changed that. In a simplified way, it's usually just business hours. The support portal that we have, again, this is something we've been pushing, just even LAE customers as well, is to use our support portal. Again, that's available from our website, and it's just a form you need to fill in. And the main thing about that is it prompts you to give us the information that will enable us to be able to investigate straight away rather than just having to bounce emails backwards and forwards. Obviously, once you raise something, you will get an email back to you to explain, to give you the incident number. And then if you reply to that email with the incident number, that will be tagged to the same instance. So there's an audit trail there as well. So although it's not manned 24/7, you can raise things 24/7 anyway, and then the support team will pick that up.
Great. I'm going to answer a couple of the ones, Tony, that I think are easy, and I know the answer to, and I'll leave you with the hard ones that I don't know the answer to. So there's a question here about, can users try the graph on the desktop version before we've installed the enterprise solution, then transfer those graphs from the desktop to the enterprise solution after it's installed? The answer is 100%. Yes, you can design on your desktop, and you can import from your old graphs into your new Analyze desktop, test them, make sure everything works, make sure all the old brain script works. If there's any problems, we're here to help with that. And then when you've upgraded your server, you could move those graphs, or as we call them now, data flows in Analyze. You could move those to the server. One of the next questions, again, the ones I know the answer to, I'm leaving the hard ones for Tony, is does Data3Sixty use the standard Python installation and packages, or is it a separate install like LAE? And this question, there is a really good post on the community forum about this. But and I'm not the most technical person in the world, so but the answer is in the transform node, which is what I showed you. You can import standard Python packages. So if you want to import math or datetime or JSON or any standard Python package, you can import and use those in the transform node without doing anything special. There are other non-pure Python packages like NumPy that are not pure Python, and those you do need to use the separate Python node where you can install non-pure Python packages. The version of Python running is actually a Java-based version called Jython for those who are interested in that sort of thing. And so anything that works in Jython, again, all the standard pure Python stuff, you can import and use those packages. Tony, I'll give you a couple that if you want, and then we'll probably wrap this up and be sensitive to people's time with 10 minutes to the hour. We'll do a few more, and then if there's any other, there's a few maybe that are technical would want to follow up individually on as well. But Tony, if there's any others you'd like to address?
Yeah, just a couple more. So there's one, can we get to speak to someone, or we need to use community web, etc. So that really depends on the problem. Our main goal at the moment is to try and assist the whole community that's using Analyze. So really we are asking for people to submit things to the community and ask questions through there. Obviously, if it's a bug or something like that, we would still use the support portal and things like that. If there's a need for us to discuss things, obviously we will do that. We'll get on the phone and talk things through if needed. We're here to help you make this transition as smoothly as possible. But ultimately, we're looking to give experience to everybody so they can go to the community, search for something and get the answer. So we are really pushing that quite a lot at the moment. There was another one I want to do things. Right, there was a question here. How do we log things we would like to see built or change? Do we send email to a specific person or ticket somewhere? Again, I probably sound like I'm trying to sell the community here rather than anything else. But again, there's actually a specific area within the community where you can propose sort of ideas of sort of changes or enhancements that you would like to see to the product. And we're really interested in hearing about those as well. Obviously, we've got a product management team. They actively look at that within the community, and those suggestions, people can actually kind of vote on them. You can sort of take sort of like it and things like that. So the more likes, we'll bring it to the attention to our product manager as well. So yeah, again, posting things to the community is going to be a massive help to us all.
I think, Tony, we'll probably leave it there for now. There are a few more questions that are fairly detailed around temp space or some specific features people are asking about how they work in the new world. Being sensitive to people's time and wanting to give probably a complete answer as opposed to a cursory one. I think there's a few questions here we'll follow up on, so apologies if we did not get to yours. Again, we will send out a link over the next couple of days to the resources we've pointed out, to this recording, if you would like to share it with colleagues or what have you. And really appreciate the interest and the feedback. We've had great attendance today and a lot of great questions. Apologies for those we didn't get to, but we will follow up with comprehensive answers in the next few days. And so with that, I want to thank Tony and thank you all, and have a good day.